Chapter 18. Race Against Time. The Zelmite mines, once alive with noise, heat, and purpose, now lay in a state of eerie decay. Where the walls had once shimmered with mineral colour and lantern light, they now stood dull and lifeless, their surfaces faded, cracked and scarred by the slow cruelty of time. The echoes that had once carried the rhythm of labour, the ring of pickaxes, the grinding wheels of minecarts, the shouted orders of foremen and the rough laughter of exhausted workers, had all vanished. In their place lingered only silence. The air was thick and stale. Once it would have been rich, with the smell of earth, sweat, oil, and freshly cut stone. Now it hung heavy with damp, rust, and abandonment, as though the mine itself had been sealed away from the world and left to rot in its memories. Monica moved cautiously through the tunnels, her footsteps soft but impossibly loud in the emptiness. Every sound seemed to travel too far. The scrape of her boot against loose stone, the faint shift of gravel beneath her weight, the distant drip of water somewhere in the dark. Each noise made her pause, listening for movement that might not belong to her. The deeper she ventured, the more obvious the neglect became. Dust and cobwebs clung to the fractured wooden supports, which sagged beneath the weight of years. Some beams had splintered completely, their strength eaten away by damp and age. The tunnels, once carefully carved and reinforced by experienced hands, now bore the wounds of collapse. Sections of the passage had caved in, blocking old routes and choking off access to what had once been a rich and valuable vein of Zelmite ore. There was no warmth here, no life, no pickaxes struck the walls, no lanterns swung from hooks, no voices called out through the tunnels. The mine's once beating heart had been silenced, leaving behind a hollow stillness that seemed almost unnatural. Scattered throughout the decay were the forgotten tools of the miners. Picks and shovels lay abandoned where their owners had left them, their metal heads tarnished and eaten by rust, their wooden handles cracked and worn smooth by hands that would never return. Rusted mine carts sat on warped tracks, empty and motionless, their wheels locked in place by corrosion. Once, they had carried precious Zelmite out of the depths, along with the hopes of the people who had worked there. Now, they were nothing more than hollow reminders of ambition, labour, and loss. Monica's caution was not only for the unstable ground or the risk of falling stone. There could still be monsters lurking in the dark, drawn to the forgotten places where people no longer dared to tread. Every shadow seemed to shift. Every bend in the tunnel felt like it might be hiding something. Yet the danger was not what most unsettled her. It was the feeling that Max was still here, not in body, but in memory, in the air, in the silence, in the weight pressing against her chest. The further she went, the more it felt as though his presence lingered around her, like a ghost trapped beneath the mountain. She could almost imagine him passing through these same tunnels, determined and afraid, pushing forward despite the odds. The thought made her heart tighten. Max had fought here. He had faced Flotsam somewhere beyond these passages, risking everything in a battle Monica knew had already shaped the future. And yet, standing in that ruined mine, it no longer felt like history. It felt close. Too close. Eventually, Monica reached the miners' break room, or what remained of it. Once, it must have been a place of brief relief for weary workers, a shelter from the relentless grind of the mines. Perhaps they had sat there with aching limbs, sharing food, stories, and complaints before returning to the darkness. Now the room was cold and deserted. Broken benches lay overturned. Old cups and containers had been left to gather dust. The walls were stained with damp, and the silence within felt even heavier than the tunnels outside. Then Monica saw the obstruction ahead. Her path came to an abrupt end. A mass of boulders had collapsed into the passage, wedged so tightly together that there was no way through. She stepped closer, searching for a gap, a weakness, anything she could use. But it was hopeless. The tunnel beyond was completely blocked. That was the way to Max. The way to the place where he had fought Flotsam was unclear. Monica clenched her fists, frustration rising inside her. She had come so far, followed the traces of the past through the dead mine, only to be stopped by a wall of stone. Somewhere beyond that collapse was the moment she needed to reach. Somewhere beyond it was Max, facing a danger she could not simply stand back and accept. "No," she muttered, her voice sharp against the silence. "There has to be another way." For a moment, desperation threatened to take hold. She looked around the ruined break room, searching for another passage, another route, or some overlooked doorway hidden beneath the debris. But the mine offered no answer, only dust, darkness, and the cold certainty of the blockage before her. Then she remembered the star glass. Monica's hand moved to it as hope sparked within her. The artifact was more than a relic. It was a bridge through time, a way to see what had been, and perhaps influence what still mattered. If the tunnel did not allow her to follow Max directly, then she would have to think differently. She could move ahead of him, reach the right moment from another point, leapfrog through time and place herself where she was needed most. The thought steadied her. The frustration did not vanish, but it sharpened into resolve. Max was not beyond her reach, not yet. Monica tightened her grip on the star glass, her eyes fixed on the blocked tunnel as if she could see past the stone itself. If the mine would not let her walk to Max, then she would find another way through the past. Returning to the centre of the break room, Monica carefully lowered herself to one knee and placed the star glass on the dusty floor. For a moment, she simply stared at it. The artifact looked almost too delicate for such a grim place, its surface catching what little light remained and holding it like a trapped star. Around her, the ruined break room seemed to fall even quieter, as though the mine itself were waiting to see what she would do next. Anticipation fluttered in her chest, tangled tightly with nerves. She had seen the star glass do impossible things before, yet that did not make its power any easier to trust. There was always uncertainty with magic like this. There was always the fear that it might fail, or worse, that it might take her somewhere she was not prepared to go. Still, she had no other choice. Monica drew in a slow breath and closed her eyes. She thought of Max. Not simply his face or his voice, but everything that had brought them to this point. She reached for the memories that bound them together, the strange, chaotic, wonderful fragments of their journey, to stop Emperor Griffin's malevolence from devouring the world. She remembered their first meeting, awkward and ridiculous in hindsight. She had been disguised as a boy then, bold enough to try and steal his circus ticket, never imagining that the stranger she had tricked would become one of the most important people in her life. The memory stirred a faint smile on her lips, even here in the darkness. Then came the battles. Monsters in ruined forests, creatures lurking in ancient places, the clash of weapons, the snap of magic, the desperate moments when victory had seemed impossible until they had somehow found the strength to keep fighting. Again and again, Max had stood beside her, stubborn, brave, and endlessly determined. She thought, too, of the quieter moments. Their returns to Palm Brinks were weary and dust-covered, grateful for the safety of familiar streets, the relief of restocking supplies, the comfort of sitting together over drinks after another narrow escape, allowing themselves to laugh, complain, and breathe for a little while before the next danger called them forward. Those memories mattered. They were not just pieces of the past. They were proof of the bond they had built. A bond forged through danger, trust, and shared purpose. Monica clung to them now, letting each one rise clearly in her mind, hoping the Starglass would understand what her heart already knew. She did not want power for herself. She wanted to reach Max. She wanted to help him. The Starglass began to respond. At first, the change was subtle, a pale shimmer beneath its surface, no brighter than moonlight on water. Then the light deepened, pulsing gently in time with the memories she summoned. Thin strands of radiance spread across the floor, tracing delicate patterns through the dust like veins of starlight. Monica opened her eyes, her breath caught. The artifact's glow painted the broken benches, rusted tools and cracked walls in a silver-blue haze. For the first time since entering the mine, the darkness seemed to retreat. She leaned closer, heart pounding. If her plan worked, she might be able to bypass the collapsed passage. She might be able to leap beyond the obstruction and arrive closer to the moment where Max needed her most. Yet the possibility brought its fear. The Starglass was mysterious, and the past was not a path one could walk without consequence. Still, Max had never abandoned her. She would not abandon him. Monica placed her hand near the Starglass, feeling the faint warmth rising from it. "I hope this works for me," she whispered. Her voice was quiet, but the words carried all the hope, fear, and determination inside her. The Starglass answered her. A radiant glow burst from its surface, spreading through the break room in rippling waves of silver-blue light. It washed over the ruined benches, the rusted tools, and the cracked stone walls, turning the dead mine briefly beautiful. Shadows fled into the corners. Dust shimmered in the air like frost. For one impossible moment, the Zelmite mines no longer looked abandoned, but enchanted. Then the light grew stronger. Monica threw an arm across her face, shielding her eyes as the brilliance became almost unbearable. The ground seemed to vanish beneath her knees. The stale air of the mines dissolved around her. Something colder, cleaner, and vast, beyond understanding, swept away the smell of damp stone, rust, and decay. When she dared to open her eyes again, she found the mine was gone. She was standing in a boundless expanse of stars. There was no floor beneath her, no ceiling above, and no walls to guide her. Only endless darkness, scattered with countless points of light, stretching farther than the eye could follow. It was not the night sky. It was something deeper. A place between moments, where the rules of distance and time had no meaning. Monica's breath caught in her throat. She had travelled through time before, but never like this, and never without her Atlamilia. The thought struck her with sudden force. Her Atlamilia had always been her safeguard, the sacred stone that protected her when she moved through the currents of time. Without it, she felt exposed, as though the void itself might tear her apart if her focus wavered for even a moment. Fear crawled through her chest. She clenched her fists. "No," she whispered. Then louder, forcing strength into her voice, she said, "Come on, Monica. You can do this." Her words echoed through the star-filled emptiness, returning to her as faint, distorted fragments. She closed her eyes for a heartbeat and summoned Max's face again. His stubborn smile, his courage, the way he always pushed forward, no matter how impossible the odds became. "Focus on Max," she told herself. "Concentrate on him. That's all that matters." The void trembled faintly around her. Among the countless stars ahead, one light began to shine brighter than all the others. It pulsed with a warm, familiar radiance, steady and unmistakable, like a lantern held out in the dark. Monica knew at once. That was him. Okay, remember what Crest said. "Only the strong ones can stand the test of time," she said with gritted teeth. She reached towards it and took a step. At first, moving felt almost impossible. There was no ground beneath her feet, no true direction, no sense of weight or balance. Each step was slow, strained, and uncertain, as though she were forcing her way through invisible water. But she did not stop. She fixed her gaze on the brighter star and pressed forward. One step became another, then another. Her pace quickened. Determination burnt through her fear. The star ahead seemed to call to her, and Monica answered with everything she had. She began to run, her boots striking a path that existed only because her will demanded it. The stars stretched around her, blurring into silver lines as she surged forward, faster and faster, until speed itself seemed to lose all meaning. Light bent, time opened, and still Monica ran. Yet, as the void rushed past her, the weight of what she was doing settled heavily in her heart. She might never return home. The thought was not new, but here, suspended outside the boundaries of the world she had known, it became painfully real. Her father's face rose in her mind, proud, burdened, loving. A king who had lost so much already. A father who had hoped his daughter would one day take her place and carry their kingdom into the future. Monica's throat tightened. "Father," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly as she ran, "I'm sorry." The stars swallowed the words, but she spoke them anyway. "I'm sorry I couldn't fulfill my royal duties. I know what I was meant to become. I know what you needed me to be." Her expression hardened with sorrowful resolve. But that life was never truly mine. Not completely. I wanted to choose my path. I wanted to find my destiny, not simply inherit one. The confession hurt more than she expected. It was not rejection of her father, nor of the people she had been born to protect. It was simply the truth. A truth she had carried quietly for longer than she wanted to admit. Then another memory surfaced. A name. Tren. It left her lips softly, almost like a prayer. Her dear friend, the one who had been erased from existence because of the changes time had undergone. This is due to the choices made in the desperate struggle to save the world. Monica had told herself there had been no other way, but that did not make the loss any easier to bear. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling with regret. "I'm sorry that trying to save time cost you your place in it." For a moment, her stride faltered. "If I could have saved you, I would have. If I could have taken you with me and protected you from what happened, I would have done it." Her hands tightened at her sides. "But the world demanded a price. Time demanded a price. And people like you were the ones who paid it." The guilt threatened to drag her backwards, to slow her down, to drown her in all the things she could never fix. Monica refused to let it claim her. Not now. Not when Max was still ahead. She forced herself onwards. Her absence would leave her kingdom without its princess. Perhaps fate would be cruel enough to leave it without a monarch at all. That knowledge pressed down on her, heavy and unforgiving. Yet somewhere within that sorrow, a small ember of hope remained. Perhaps her leaving did not have to mean ruin. Perhaps the kingdom could become something new. She thought of the nobles, the ministers, the people who had served the crown and those who had lived beneath it. She hoped they would find the courage to build a future that did not depend entirely on bloodlines and thrones. A fairer system, a wiser one, a government shaped not by royal inheritance, but by the needs of the people it was meant to protect. If monarchy fell away in her absence, then perhaps something better could rise from its ashes. A kingdom no longer built around a crown, but around its citizens. The thought gave her strength. Ahead, the bright star grew larger. As Monica sprinted towards it, the world around her began to shift. The endless void thinned, and through the blur of starlight she saw the Zelmite mines returning, not as she had found them, broken and lifeless, but as they once had been. Colour seeped back into the stone, the walls regained their rich glow, wooden beams straightened and strengthened, cobwebs vanished, rust retreated from abandoned tools, picks and shovels gleamed once more, ready for work. Minecarts sat firm on polished rails, no longer hollow relics, but useful, waiting vessels. The mines were alive again, not silent ruins, but a place of labour, danger, and purpose. Monica barely saw any of it. Her eyes remained locked on the star ahead. Its glow began to change, stretching and reshaping itself until it no longer looked like a distant light. It became a figure, a boy running ahead of her, just beyond reach. She could see only his back, but she knew him instantly. The brown hunting hat, the yellow shirt, the blue denim overalls, maximum. Relief and fear collided inside her so violently that it almost stole her breath. "Max!" she cried. He did not turn. The distance between them remained thin but agonizing, as though time itself were trying to keep them apart. Monica pushed harder. "Hold on just a little longer," she shouted, her voice fierce with urgency. "I'm coming. I will save you." Every ounce of strength she had left surged through her body. Her legs burnt. Her lungs ached. The stars screamed past her, and the restored mine flickered around them in flashes of light and motion. Max was close now, so close. Monica reached out. For one terrifying instant, she thought she might miss him. Then her hands found his shoulders. The moment she touched him, the whole world stopped. The stars froze. The light collapsed inward. The fabric of time itself seemed to recognize the connection between them and bend around it. Monica held on, refusing to let go, refusing to be torn away after fighting so hard to reach him. Then everything shattered into brilliance. The void vanished. The pull of the starglass seized her, dragging her through the final barrier between past and present, between memory and reality. Monica had found Max, and time had carried her back to his side.